Welcome to DiCE. You may be asking yourself, what is DiCE? DiCE is an organization, a safe space for those who don't belong, a cozy environment to meet new friends and others just like you, a family that gives you relentless support and is there for you no matter the time or occasion.
DiCE.org is one of the most notorious cults I think I've seen online and one of the most interesting subjects I think I've covered on this channel, all surrounding an individual known as Necrophilic and the community they've built around themselves filled with degenerate actors who indulge in vile, reprehensible activity that, due to its notoriety, I've already covered on the channel before. However, in that video I feel I came off half-cocked. I didn't have all the information I needed to cover the situation, and for that reason I've always thought that video was due a part 2 or a revisiting. So today I'd like to sit down and reopen a book that I left closed on a certain page quite a while ago. Let's talk about a cult called DiCE and an artist known as Birdie. To catch you up to speed quickly and introduce you to the pieces on the chessboard as easily as possible, I'm going to split this section in two. The first half will focus on DiCE, the organization and self-proclaimed cult behind many of the most nefarious acts in the art community, and how its creator for a long time now has been documented as having a history of nefarious and sometimes criminal deeds. The second half, however, will focus on Birdie and how Birdie's career as an artist was disrupted by some of their acts on the internet and how they ultimately ended up involved with said cult. This will make for an interesting tale, but this is going to be a short one. DiCE is a cult and subject that's been talked about quite frequently. A lot of people are very aware of this situation, and I think a lot of the actors in this situation need no introduction. So with that being said, let's get right into it. Necrophilic, henceforth known as Mortis, is an individual whose online history dates back to 2018. First appearing as an artist and animator, they were originally involved with a different cult, before ultimately leaving said cult and creating their own, known today as DiCE. DiCE, on the other hand, really doesn't need any introduction. Regardless, I think it's important to brush over the broad strokes. DiCE, or DiCE.org, was founded in July of 2020, and initially professed itself as a community or safe space for people that, quote, don't belong. However, the facade surrounding this organization was short-lived, and ultimately the curtain fell away, revealing what this community actually was. The creator of said community, Mortis, had a long and documented history of motivating other people to commit self-inflicted injuries upon themselves in the name of the DiCE cult and for Mortis themselves. I could go over the laundry list of screenshots of Mortis applauding people for committing self-inflicted injuries. I could scream until my voice is hoarse over the fact this Discord server included a chat where people could share images of their self-inflicted injuries. I could draw your attention to the fact that Mortis has willingly admitted to their involvement in illicit ways with an animal in the past. An action and confession that ultimately led to a police investigation resulting in Mortis's devices being seized from their possession. I could even, if I chose, pad this video with evidence showing that this cult has been used multiple times in the past to discriminate against others. But I won't, because while there's no denying that this community has bad actors within it, Mortis is a reprehensible individual who needs genuine help. Ultimately, this all encompasses a community of children with serious issues that actually need to be addressed and talked about seriously, instead of sensationalized like in a YouTube video I may have made in the past. I feel that was my one failure when I made my previous video on DiCE. I made that video more sensationalized and focused on the spectacle surrounding a community of people who engage in degenerate activity instead of the real issue, which was that there were a ton of people who were engaging in this hateful community, and talking about it in a public video is only going to spread word surrounding this community, feed the creator of this community's desperate need for validation through attention surrounding their name, and drive inquisitive individuals and children looking for a safe space to this community, regardless of the risks. Whether you think DiCE really is a cult or if it's just a group filled with mentally deranged individuals is a stupid debate surrounding semantics that ultimately only serves to undermine the serious issues here, and really I don't think it's worth a debate. This community still exists several years after it was first brought to the public's attention, and it shows no signs of ever disappearing. Giving it attention only serves to feed its creator's ego. Unfortunately though, I feel I have to join that discussion one more time to wrap up said situation and highlight how we can do better as creators in the future. Because while I know I was the one who made that video 2 years ago when I talked about this cult for the first time, I mean, I literally remember pressing the upload button on it, I feel I barely know the person who made that video and rarely stand by any of the takes I expressed. In fact, I'd be hard pressed to say I agree with any of the takes I expressed at that time. But I mean, who could blame me? I was an incorrigible kid who, at that point, saw other people talking about something and mindlessly jumped on the subject without ever considering the harm my video may do. But irregardless, as I said at the start of this video, I opened this book. So I think it's my job to close it, and for hopefully the last time, look at this situation from an honest eye. DiCE is a genuine problem. A community allowed to thrive that's based on harming yourself for the sake of other people, being involved in constant discussions around death from a young age, having people constantly push into your mind the idea that criminal activities surrounding animals or other people is okay, suggesting the idea of sharing explicit images of oneself regardless of their age. All of said subjects are obviously concerning, and a community that would promote said activity is not one that should be allowed to exist on any platform. If a younger child with a malleable, dumb baby brain is allowed to engage in these communities and convinced that the things expressed within these communities are things that are okay to do, that's a problem. Children should never be allowed to be around discussions like this, and I ultimately think that being around these discussions will have impact on them later into their life. I've been making videos on subjects like this since I was very young. I've been making videos on subjects like this since way before I truly comprehended what a lot of the actual issues were, when I just believed something was an issue because someone told me it was, without ever really understanding the depth behind it. I didn't know that at the time, but obviously that's very clear to me now. The fact such gross discussions were ingrained within my life for so long while I was younger, constantly talking about these subjects in every video I made for such a long time, has had serious detrimental impact on my mental health over the time I've been making videos. Normalizing this discussion as if it's normal to constantly think about these things and have to be a moral arbiter from a young age was not good for my mental health, and it caused me to make a lot of videos I wouldn't necessarily make today, say a lot of things I wouldn't necessarily say today, and have thoughts that I never really wanted to have. It was horrible for me mentally when I was making those videos, and I still think those effects remain to this day. I do not for a second believe anyone who was as young as I was when I started commentary should start commentary. And while I wouldn't take back anything I've done on my path to get here, I love what I have today, and I think getting over those stepping stones has led me to becoming a better person. I do wish I focused a lot more on my own mental health and chose to put myself first. It is a scary world, but constantly thinking about that isn't good for anyone. If you surround yourself with only negative thoughts about life and never give yourself the chance to actually enjoy what you have, you'll miss out on the things in life that are worth living for. I know that was a long tangent, but I hope my roundabout point gets across. What I'm trying to say is that being involved in this community from a younger age, being convinced that this behavior is okay, and on the other side of the coin, feeling the need to talk about it and expose it from a young age online, is only going to further developmental trauma within the children surrounding this discussion. This is a very touchy subject, and one that needs to be handled with care. I hope it's clear that my point is that a lot of people who got involved in this discussion did not take such care in mind when making videos. But to be clear, DiCE is a problem that needs to be addressed. It's a community allowed to thrive without any stop in sight, filled with manipulative, vindictive actors, and easily exploitable victims. This community has a documented history of all the predatory acts that have occurred within it, all the harmful acts that have occurred within it. And I want it to be clear that this community should not be allowed to exist. I think a video saying as much is necessary. But this community does exist, and it's never going to go away, so really I struggle to answer the question of what we're supposed to do about it, other than spreading awareness. Realistically, I think there are two issues with this situation, two main issues that need to be talked about. The first is obviously Mortis, an individual who has a long history of criminal, otherwise morally reprehensible acts, who runs this organization and is the figurehead who represents it. This individual needs actual help, this individual should not be allowed internet access, and this individual's words shouldn't be appreciated or valued by anyone. Giving them attention only serves to further their own ego. The second issue surrounds all the kids involved in this community, because at the end of the day, this isn't really some kind of cult. This isn't some big evil conspiracy. It's a community filled with a bunch of vulnerable kids being exploited by a false prophet. One of those vulnerable kids is an individual known as Birdie, bringing us to our second and final section of this video. Birdie was a once prominent YouTuber and animator in the animatic community, with a following of almost 100,000 subscribers on YouTube. They're also no new face to controversy. Birdie's history has many examples of controversy, and throughout their time on the platform, they've been made the target of many a commentary video in the past. However, I don't really think how Birdie was presented was fair. Birdie was openly lambasted for their controversies for years, and I mean literally years. When Birdie first started finding himself the face of controversy, they were genuinely a child. With Spoctor's first video on Birdie, a video sitting at over 1 million views, being made 4 years ago, when Birdie would have only been 14 or younger. And yes, Birdie has definitely made mistakes. I don't think even they would say otherwise. If you're really interested in the rundown of all their controversies, I would forward you to Spoctor's video, The Darkness Around Birdie. It's a very good retrospective on his past video, but regardless, who can genuinely puff out their chest and proclaim with confidence that they wouldn't make mistakes when they were a child that young with a platform this big? I know I couldn't, and my story of growing as a content creator is pretty similar to Birdie's. I've made mistakes too. So when I hear that a child with serious mental issues made mistakes, specifically mistakes in relationships with others, I struggle to find a justification for why any videos about them were actually made. Who did these videos help? What did these videos serve to achieve? Sure, Birdie made mistakes, but everyone does. And I'm not surprised that a child with no kind of experience with an online platform wouldn't respond well to a sudden wave of large-scale controversy. So it wasn't really a surprise when Birdie ended up joining the DiCE cult and getting themselves involved in these people who would only serve to drive them to make more mistakes. In hindsight, I think people used this argument to go after and attack Birdie more instead of actually addressing the real issue here. I think I'm guilty of doing just the same. Birdie was 16 when they joined this cult, and they never really engaged with the community, so I think talking about it as an important talking point in a video was very unnecessary. They were dragged in by another member of the cult and never really did anything of note while being involved with it. In reality, I don't really think Birdie should have been mentioned in this situation aside from a potential minor mention in a video somewhere. Definitely shouldn't have been made the main focus, and I think they got a lot of undue backlash for it when this conversation really should have focused on the cult, the victims within it, and the creator of said cult who's involved in a lot of degenerate activity. With that being said though, I hope that was an interesting retrospective on the entire situation that gives you a deeper look into how I view these things and how I hope to improve from videos I've made in the past. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to subscribe to the channel. I'd appreciate the support. Check out my other social media, Twitter, Discord, etc. linked in the description down below. And with that being said, I'll see you next time, and peace.
I don't know why you hide what you feel inside. Get inside, we gon' have a killer time. Don't think twice, but you always end up on my mind. Girl, you been a vibe. Slow down, shorty, that's a whole lot. I don't really dance, but I could do the roll. I never had a problem making a fool of myself. Blueberry biscotti, be smoking another L. I know you smile when you see me on your feed. Girl, it's been a while, get you showing all your teeth. Wanna wake up next to you in the morning, let you look cute when you're yawning. You got me